Hello there, welcome to Jump Button Gamer Podcast. I'm Mike, that's Kosta. That was a little screaming goat toy I got over the holidays. Did you like that opening there?
I was not expecting that.
Welcome back. So welcome everybody, this is the very first episode of Jump Button Gamer Podcast for 2021. Hopefully we are in for another great year of podcasts. We started this one back in March, April, like shortly after the pandemic, I think.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So yeah, we're going on a few months strong now. Hopefully we'll have a good year this year. So Kosta, how was your holiday break?
It was good. Relaxing. Started playing a couple other games on my Series X. And other than that, just trying to, keep my fingers crossed that 2021 isn't the year that the world is totally obliterated.
Right now, 2021 feels like the sequel that is supposed to be darker and grittier, but it has the same script as the first movie. They basically just took the script, like a Home Alone 2 style, where they just took the script, copied it, and said, okay, let's just put it in New York.
And you know what? Just like Home Alone 2, Donald Trump is being taken out of it.
Have you seen those memes where people have been substituting him with other things? It's pretty funny.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty good. But yeah, I agree. Did you get anything good for Christmas?
So I got a couple of games. I was gifted Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Me too.
And Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War.
Nice.
And then I also got the I'll show it to you on camera real quick. I guess anyone who's just listening isn't gonna be able to see it, but
that's all right. We can describe it.
Yeah, I got the Shock Blue controller for my Series X.
Wow.
Yeah,
that is cool.
Yeah, I really like this shade of blue, and I think they just announced the Pulse Red.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah,
well, which looks really really sharp as well. But
yeah. I will give Microsoft credit where it's due. They do a good job at like custom controllers and like giving you different themes and more than other companies do generally.
I actually would not be surprised. Microsoft sent out random surveys to, I guess, people who have Xbox Live memberships, asking if players are interested in like the haptic feedback features that are.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did hear about that.
So I wouldn't be surprised if the next iteration of not the base controller, but the Elite controller.
Sure.
If the was it the Xbox controller Elite, it would be Elite 3 controller. Okay. Would have some sort of haptic features built into it, but I just don't know if developers will put the types of features into their games if only a very small percentage of people actually have that controller.
Well, and that's the current concern with the DualSense. And obviously, the DualSense does the haptic feedbacks, the adaptive triggers, all of that. But that's the big question that every Sony fan has right now, too. Is like, okay, yeah, this is really cool. And it is. And I've played my PS5 over the break a lot. And it is nice. It does give you a level of immersion that you just don't get from the standard controller. So it is cool. But yeah, exactly. That's the issue. Will developers take the time and the effort to actually utilize these features? Or is it just going to be like a few first-party games and maybe a few gimmicky games, and then it just kind of disappears?
Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, I think it's going to be limited almost exclusively to first-party games.
Right.
Just because, why would a developer like say Ubisoft make a game and spend time and money putting in a feature that only a very small percentage. I mean, great, like all PS5 players would get to experience it.
Sure.
But then like the Elite controllers for Xbox, I mean, they're like $200+ controllers.
Right.
So you're going to have a very, very small percentage of Xbox players that will be able to take advantage of that feature.
Well, and depending on the results of the survey, though, it could also flip the other way, where if people do respond positively to wanting the feedback and the triggers, then maybe it tilts the other way. And if Microsoft does add in those features to a future controller, then companies are more enticed to say, okay, well, it looks like the majority of people will experience these features, so what can we do here? And can we make it universal across the board? Because if they can do that, it's a great selling point. Because imagine if, the next Star Wars game that comes out, you feel like the lightsaber light up like in your controller, like almost like it's in your hand. Like that's a pretty neat selling point.
Yeah.
So that's it's interesting. It could go either way. Yes, it could either fade away if people don't show interest, or who knows, it could ramp up if people really love the idea.
Sure.
I mean, that's what I would hope for. But yeah. Yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, I did get, like I said, I also got Valhalla as a gift. I did have Cyberpunk on my Christmas list, but I didn't end up getting it, and at this point, I'm kind of good to wait after all that I heard over the last month and seen, and I'm like, okay, you know what? That's fine. It's okay that I didn't get it. I can wait for a little while. So, and then also, I'm all about free games recently, so I also got some PlayStation Plus games. Like, they finally gave us Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Mm-hmm. And I played the first 2 games, and I haven't played this third one yet. I don't know why. I think I was just kind of, like, fatigued out from that style of game for a while.
Sure.
But now that it's free, I'm like, yeah, why not? I'll take it for a spin. So that makes for a very nice transition into the first segment of our show, and that is the Now Playing segment, where we like to gab about the games we're currently playing. And Kosta, what have you been playing recently then? I'm assuming you've been playing Valhalla then, if you got it over the break.
I actually have not even installed it yet.
Oh, really? Darn it.
So, I actually have been playing a bit of Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War.
Okay.
I mean, my brothers and a couple other friends have it, and I enjoy playing the multiplayer with them, and I actually find that I'm better at Black Ops Cold War than I was at Modern Warfare. I don't know if the game does feel and play different,
Okay.
in a couple of ways. But I know a lot of people who liked Modern Warfare aren't necessarily a fan of Black Ops Cold War, but
Sure.
I don't mind it.
Right. Now, I know
better.
you played Warzone. Have you played do you play the rendition of Call of Duty that comes out every time, or is it every here and there?
This is legitimately the first time that I have gotten Call of Duty in back-to-back. Because, I mean, last year was the first year I'd really played Call of Duty consistently since the original Modern Warfare 2. And then this is the first time where I've gotten Call of Duty in back-to-back years since going from Modern Warfare 2 into World at War.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Warzone I'm staying away from because they're having some balancing issues right now. And I really don't know if I fully understand Activision's choice to... they basically kept all the Modern Warfare stuff in Warzone and then merged in the Black Ops weapons. It's essentially just Modern Warfare with the Warzone skin,
right
now with Black Ops weapons. And the thing is that you have basically the same guns. You can have an AK-47, but you'll have 2 versions of it. You'll have the Black Ops version and the Modern Warfare version. Mm-hmm. And so it's causing some balance issues. So I haven't really been doing much of that. Okay. Just been playing the traditional multiplayer on
Gotcha.
Cold War, and that's been fun. Another random thing that I have done recently actually is completed the Pokédex on Pokemon Shield.
Nice.
Though it doesn't really count. It's not like the full
Right.
Pokédex because it's still missing like a few hundred Pokemon. That there's still a few that didn't make it in. But like I'd completed the full Pokédex on the base game, but then you had like the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra expanded dexes, and so I actually completed those.
Nice.
Just because I was just just like sitting down playing my Switch. I'm like, oh, maybe I can. What's there left for me to do? Oh, try and finish the Pokédex, or so that's what I did.
That's a nice accomplishment. It deserves a. But no. So that's good. That's good. I have been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I played it for a good while. I jumped off of it just about yesterday because, like I mentioned, I started playing Shadow of Tomb Raider. Mm-hmm. Valhalla I do like, and it definitely seems to have some of the best elements of previous Assassin's Creed games. Everything feels smooth. It feels like they've kind of, taken all of what they've learned over the past, quite a few years of Assassin's Creed games, over a decade, I think now, or close. And it does kind of feel like this is the smoothest type of Assassin's Creed game. The way that the stealth mechanics work and the RPG mechanics, how they mesh in, is nice. I think I love open world games, but I do think with this game I'm hitting a little bit of the open world fatigue. Mm-hmm. It's another big Ubisoft map with icons everywhere, and it's like, and it's not very consistent because it's like, I don't mind games that give you choice as to what you do, but my annoyance is if you have a main quest, right, and you're trying to follow that main quest. Mm-hmm. What this game does is that, they'll give you, the main quest icons or whatever, but then at times they then disappear. And then you're left to find out, you have to find out on your own, like, oh, well, what quest do I have to do now to advance the main quest? They don't give you a direct, I don't know. I guess I'm not a big fan of just not knowing what to do next. You know what I mean? Especially in a big open world, because then it's like, okay, do I try to do this side quest and see if that gives me a main quest again, or do I do this? Sure. Rockstar has it right where they at least always tell you, okay, if you want to, like in Red Dead 2, for example, they always tell you, okay, if you want to continue the story, go to this marker, right? And in Valhalla, they don't do that. Like, they do it for a while, but then there are times where they then take away that marker, and then it's just like, oh, okay, I have to discover what my next quest is? I don't know. It's annoying if you want to mainline the story. If you don't want to and you just want to explore the world, then it's not as bad, because then you get to go around and explore the side quests.
Now, does Valhalla, does it penalize you in any way for wanting to push straight through the main story? Because I know, in Origins and in Odyssey, it's like you sort of there would get points if you were going through the main story too quickly. You may want to stop and sort of grind out some side missions to get your level up, because enemies are going to get tougher and whatnot.
I haven't hit that necessarily. It's one of these games where you can technically go around the world and you can start doing all these things, right? Even if you're not at the right level to start a raid, for example. Mm-hmm. You can still start that raid. How successful you're going to be depends on how powerful you are. You know what I mean? Right. So it's like they don't necessarily penalize you, but yeah, you do get kind of stalwarted a little bit because you're not powerful enough. So the enemies you can't really beat, even with your Viking companions helping you out. And then there are still a few zealots that roam the landscape, kind of like in the previous games, where they're just hunting you, which is active, even though there's a point in the main story where Eivor is alerted to the fact that zealots are after him or her, And to me that's like not right. Like that's not fair into an open world game. It's like if there's going to be a threat out in the world, like a roaming mercenary who's super powerful and can kill you in an instant. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be able to just randomly stumble upon that and then get killed. You know what I mean? Like without setup, I guess. You know, especially if you're going to take time in the main story to set it up. Because there is a quest in the main story where you have to go to do this to call the zealots off. You know what I mean? So it's like if they introduce the zealots in the story and then they're all over the map, okay, that makes sense to me. But it just doesn't make sense why these zealots are just roaming and want to kill you before the story says that they want to kill you.
Right.
I don't know. I guess maybe that's just me, but that kind of bugs me a little bit too.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, there was in like actually this is both I believe in both Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion and in Skyrim, but it's kind of funny because like you can stumble onto somebody without even realizing it, like someone who's like secretly a member of the Dark Brotherhood.
Okay.
And if you kill them, again, you won't know that they're associated with Dark Brotherhood. They'll send assassins after you, but you know the Dark Brotherhood, they're meant to be like very stealthy. They work in the dark and everything like that. And you could just at random times have a Dark Brotherhood assassin trying to attack you clear out of the blue, which adds like an exciting element. But the funny part is though is that then you yourself like you could join the Dark Brotherhood, and then you know then there's no issues. Right. You know, you don't have assassins coming after you any longer.
Right.
But I don't know. It's kind of like an interesting element though. I remember in what was it in Origins. They had, you know, the bounty hunters or whatever, and but you could always see where they were on the map, though.
Right,
and you could plan things out.
Right, and they still do that, but there's still going to be times, though, when you're not looking at the map, and then just suddenly they're just roaming by, and then suddenly they see you, and it's like, oh, wait, you're fighting me now? You know what I mean? I mean, it's like, I get it, because I did also play Origins, so I understood the concept, because they just carried that over. But if like you're new to the series and you play that, you know, it's like you're getting punished for no reason. You know what I mean? Right. It's like what you just said. Like if you accidentally kill somebody of the Brotherhood, like that's at least somewhat sensible. You know what I mean? That's cause and effect. You made the choice to kill a character, so you're facing those repercussions. Right. This is more just like, oh, you're just exploring this land, and this guy just happens to gallop by and now suddenly wants to kill you. Like, you know what I mean? It's like that just doesn't seem right to me. But yeah. So it's like,
well, I guess technically their job is to track you, though. You know,
right, and I like I said, I don't know. I mean, there's a balance to it because yes, I see both sides, but I guess to me it just seems odd to have them going around where you can find out about the zealots before your character finds out about the zealots. You know what I mean? I guess that's my point.
Are the zealots like all at different levels, like the bounty hunters in Origins were?
Yeah, okay. They're supposed to be, and of course they're way higher level than you are when you're, you know, first introduced. Like I think like the lowest level area I can get to right now that I haven't already conquered is like level 90, and I'm level 55.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's like you get kind of stalwarted with mission progression because it's like, okay, if you want to build up your settlement, to build up your settlement, you have to go and complete raids. Oh, wait, you can't complete raids because this raid is an area of level 90 power, and the next raid available is in a level 120 power area. You know, so you get just kind of stonewalled, and it's just like, okay, and that's what happened to me. It's like I got stonewalled because it's like I couldn't do all these raids, so I couldn't build up my settlement. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll just do story missions. And then I did story missions until suddenly all the story missions disappeared, and they're just like, okay, now figure it out. I'm like, great, thanks, guys.
Sounds like I have some fun stuff to look forward to when I
mean, and you might experience it different than me. I don't know. I guess the fatigue wore on me a little bit, so that's why I picked up Shadow of the Tomb Raider instead. And we'll talk more about it later because I want to. I forgot to mention at the top of the show that we are going to talk about the Lucasfilm games announcements, and one of those is about the Indiana Jones, and I kind of want to bring in Shadow of the Tomb Raider next. So
Sure.
for now, let's move on to the main part of the show. And what a great segue I just came up with, because we are going to talk about the fact that recently Lucasfilm Games is now a thing. There's a better way to put that. I just couldn't think of it off the top of my head. So it seems like EA has lost, for all intents and purposes, exclusivity with the Star Wars license. And Lucasfilm Games is now an umbrella company that that basically all Star Wars and Indiana Jones games are going to be branded under going forward. Kind of like how PlayStation Studios covers like Naughty Dog and Insomniac games and stuff like that. And the big announcements that came along with the announcement of Lucasfilm Games, which is a dumb name in my opinion, but is two big announcements. So they announced that Ubisoft will be making a Star Wars open world game. It'll be developed by Massive, Ubisoft Massive, which is known for making the Division series. And then they also announced an Indiana Jones game made by Machine Games under Bethesda. And so those are two big announcements, because those are big companies working on two of the biggest IPs that Lucasfilm has. So Kosta, let's talk first about the Indiana Jones game, because on a base level, this is exciting, right? Because I have wanted an Indiana Jones game for a long time. I have old drawings and writings about my own Indiana Jones game, where like you follow the path of the movie and all that.
Sure.
So yes, it's exciting that there's an Indiana Jones game. My question is, what's going to separate it from Uncharted, from Shadow of the Tomb Raider? And the only reason I asked is because I just started playing Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and all of these games are all the same. They're all Indiana Jones style. They start off with the hero in peril, and they're in an impossible to get out of situation. And it always involves them being trapped somehow, and somehow they get out, and then they find an item. They find like the item they were looking for, and then they cause a disaster. Then they lose the item that they're looking for, and now they have to go on this worldwide adventure to solve the problem. It's so beat by beat by beat. It's like I'm playing Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I'm like, okay, yep, here's where she falls. Okay, here's where she loses the item she was trying to get. Okay, here's the bad guy who's connected to an organization who they don't care about archaeology. They're just blowing shit up so they can get artifacts all across the world. Okay, now we have to fight them. So what can an Indiana Jones game made by Machine and Bethesda do differently than any of those games, is my question.
The answer is nothing. I mean, it's just sort of crazy because they sat on, because really the only thing that they've done with the Indiana Jones property over the last decade has been Lego Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
So they sat on it for so long, that games like Uncharted and Tomb Raider have come along, and they have taken that that style of adventure game and they own it now. Like, there's going to be nothing entirely unique other than the fact that they are going to have they're going to have a digital model of a young Harrison Ford, but they're going to get, obviously they'll get a voice actor that can sound like a young Harrison Ford and be a younger Indiana Jones.
You don't think they're going to drag his old bones into the studio?
Honestly,
no, his voice is too growly nowadays.
No, it's too growly, and I don't think there's enough money in the world that could convince Harrison Ford to wanna. I'm kind of surprised he's even up for doing another Indiana Jones movie at this point.
Well, I mean, he at least likes Indiana Jones more than he does Han Solo.
Yeah. So
for what it's worth.
but either way, like, I just don't know what they could do different, and obviously they're gonna have to tell a new story. I don't think this is going to be like a video game retelling of any of the films. It's going to be a completely original story.
Right, and it looks like it is. Based on the teaser that was released, and it was a cinematic teaser. People have pointed out, though, there are tons of references. It looks like it might take place in the Vatican City. There's hints that he might interact with the Pope, stuff like that. And I'm glad you brought up about that it's not a retelling of the movies, because, to be honest, for me, I actually think that would be the way to go. Because we have all these, games that explore, like we said, Uncharted, Tomb Raider, that explore all these. They all have original stories about exploring Sir Francis Drake's old voyages or stuff like that. So I don't know. I guess I would I would enjoy a more linear, focused on the movies, going through what they went through in the films, I guess.
Yeah, I think that would also make for a much shorter game, because the issue you run into is then you have to sort of, because you're not just going to make like a 6-hour game that just sort of rolls through, or a 8-hour game that just sort of runs through all, because you have to fill in some of the gaps and whatnot, So I think for their purposes, obviously they'll do an original story and where it falls, because they're also saying it's gonna be canon. So it's like now they're trying to figure where on the Indiana Jones timeline is it gonna fall.
Well, I think they said it takes place between Raiders and Crusade, right?
Oh, okay. I
think that's what they said. Yeah.
So I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, the fact that you've got Bethesda behind it, they do a really great job. Todd Howard is executive producing the game, and he's one of the best in the business, and he's apparently like a huge Indiana Jones fan. So I believe the game's going to get like the right treatment. I think that the game will feel like authentic to the source material,
Sure.
But again, to your point, like, what is it going to bring to the table that's going to be new? Because also, like, another game series that sort of fits into this mold is also like Assassin's Creed.
That's true.
Because
historical,
right? Exactly. A lot of references to history and like conspiracy theories and things like that.
Yeah.
All these different game franchises have borrowed, elements from Indiana Jones, and but again, but the fact that it is like the OG, like this is Indiana, so I think that's also why it sort of gets a pass as well.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that either. Yeah, exactly. It is the OG, and it's just wanting to play as that IP, as that iconic character, that will basically be the main selling point, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot of difference between, for example, the Tomb Raider games and the Uncharted games. The only difference is really that one is Lara Croft, a character that people have known, for a long period of time. Uncharted was really the only series that just kind of like took its shot, right? That said, okay, we're gonna kind of emulate what Indiana Jones did, but try to make it our own as well. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that's enough for people, and it might be. I mean, it's Indiana Jones. I'm interested, but and I'll be interested. I'm just, like I said, I'm just gonna wait and see a little bit, because Uncharted, especially the last Uncharted game, does really everything that you would want an Indiana Jones game to do. You have beautiful visuals, you have a tight story, gripping action, cover-based shooting, and there are great details. And you already had a grapple. Like, you already had a grapple and repel, so it's like that kind of was like Indy's whip a little bit. I mean, the only difference would be how you would use the whip in combat. Like, that might be, a point of deviation, I guess.
Right.
But right, and we always talk about how the Uncharted series always did such a great job at emulating action films. So it's just kind of like... it's like we already have everything we would need from an Indiana Jones game in Uncharted. And I think for the longest time, we've all kind of settled for that. You know what I mean? Because it was a good game series. So it's just like, okay, well, do we really need an Indiana Jones game now? But on the flip side, though, like you said, Bethesda and Machine Games, they've been credited for the way they weave the story in, and they're all, they always, Machine Games especially, always seems to have some sort of anti-Nazi story line going. So, there's good and bad, and a lot of people are wondering, well, is it going to be third person? Because Machine Games is known for first person shooters. So,
I think if it's an Indiana Jones game, it's going to be third person.
It has to be.
It has
to be. It's like you don't get that. I think we talked about this with the James Bond games. It's like you don't really get that feeling of being the character if you can't see that character.
Right. and I've always thought that. I mean, I guess the like exceptions being like Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that. But if you're playing in first person, it's like because they want you to like sort of encapsulate being like that character, right. But like if you're playing an iconic established character like Indiana Jones, like you can't just like believe that like I'm putting myself in the shoes of Indiana Jones. Like like that's an established character. You want to see the character, like it's gonna be modeled after Harrison Ford, and you're gonna want to see that. Like that's gonna be a part of the excitement of it. And also, like, I'm sure they want to give it, like, in Indiana Jones, like the feel of an actual theatrical film as well. So that's another reason why you would want it to be in third person.
It would be cool if they did, like, how 007 Everything or Nothing, the game had Bond moments where if you did something that looked cool in a level, you were rewarded. Like, instead of taking the stairs, you kicked out a window and rappelled down the side of a building. It would be kind of cool if they had something like that, where you did something that was very Indiana Jones-like, but you did it, like, organically, and then you were rewarded for doing it organically. Something like that. I think that might spice it up, you know what I mean? Like, creating those sorts of moments where you feel like Indiana Jones. That's ultimately what we're looking for, I guess. Yeah. I guess for me, that's what I would be looking for.
Yeah, I imagine that, like, combat-wise, and I think it's going to play very similarly to Tomb Raider and Uncharted, just because
I hope it's closer to Uncharted, because Tomb Raider's shooting mechanics are not as polished as Uncharted.
Right, because I just can't imagine like it would completely take me out of it if they just showed like Indiana Jones like just like being this incredibly agile person like flinging the whip around,
Right.
And they got to bring a little bit. They got to ground the combat a little bit.
It would be great if they designed the combat in a way that Indy's fist is like 3 inches away from the guy's head, just like in the movie, where like he's basically just punching air and the guy's reacting. Like that'd be hilarious. I know they won't do it that way, but that would be hilarious.
It's gonna have to be a lot of like.
Like bring back some of that combat, 80s, that like 80s, 90s campiness.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting. Again, like I feel like they've got a great team of developers behind it, and the question is like, when's this game going to come out? Because like Bethesda's also working on Starfield and the next Elder Scrolls game. So like, Bethesda. They're helping publish it. Like they're not.
Right. I mean, this is more a Machine's game than anything. Right.
But I'm really curious to know where it's gonna fall in like the release timeline.
Yeah, I think that's what we're all waiting for now. So from one Lucasfilm universe to the other, obviously Star Wars is the big brand under Lucasfilm, and big announcements have been made recently, and we already teed it up a little bit, but it looks like EA has lost its exclusivity to the Star Wars title, now, yes, I think gamers everywhere are rejoicing, and now we get to see the title be used for maybe multiple future projects. But for now, Ubisoft has announced that they are making a open world Star Wars game, and that's basically what we know. That's basically what we know. It's open world, it's Star Wars, it's Ubisoft. Like we said, it's Ubisoft Massive, and they're the ones behind the Division series, which is more of a looter shooter with some RPG elements. Based on the description, it looks like this is going to be what they call a story-focused action RPG, it looks like.
Okay.
We don't know if it's single player or multiplayer. We don't know when it's coming out.
So it's going to be Assassin's Creed with Star Wars skin, like a Star Wars skin.
Well, and that's what I was going to ask. I had a conversation about this on a forum somewhere, and I kind of threw the question out there. We know Ubisoft is good at, in general, they're good at making open worlds, right? Maybe not all of them hit. Maybe not all of them are great. But they at least have a track record, right, of pretty decent.
Right.
If this game is a pretty decent, just a decent Ubisoft game with a Star Wars veneer, is that enough? Or does it have to be like a top of the line, like Ubisoft's best effort to be a good game? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because they could go any direction on this. People were saying like, is it going to be a bounty hunter type game? Is it going to be a Jedi game? Or do you get to free roam as a Jedi bounty hunter? What? Like, so what do you think a Star Wars Ubisoft game has to do to be a great game?
Well, with Massive being the branch of Ubisoft that's handling it, I would lean more towards the bounty hunter assumption. Like that was my original thought.
Yeah.
And honestly,
it seems the most logical, doesn't it?
Right, and I think it would also be a chance for them to sort of, granted, like this is a game that's going to be a few years down the road. It's not going to be out for some time, right. But I imagine though, they'll want to cash in on like the popularity of the Mandalorian and whatnot, and just go with a bounty hunter character, and it fits this style because I think of the Division. It's obviously a lot. It's a third person shooter and everything, right. and that's that's what they're known for. So I mean, what better way, or really the only approach you could go in that route would be as a bounty hunter.
Sure.
You could go. I mean, and I think and especially since it seems that they're really, LucasArts, or should I say Disney at this point, they're really looking to expand the lore of Star Wars, and now they're saying everything that all this new content, all this new stuff that's come out is all canon, and they're not putting a lot of focus on the characters that we've all seen the most of, and so I think this is another opportunity for them to introduce like a completely original character that exists within the universe. So I mean, I'm excited to see what they come up with. I'm excited to see what some of the other studios are going to be that they team up with, because there are going to be so many Star Wars. You can only do so much with Indiana Jones, right? It's called Indiana Jones, so you got one guy you can really follow around for the story. But with Star Wars, like the possibilities are nearly endless.
Oh, absolutely.
You can create any kind of character on like any kind of planet, and give them a story and everything. So I'm really excited to see what Ubisoft does, and I'm also really excited to see what other developers Lucasfilm games teams up with for future titles.
Yeah, and see, the reason I asked about the Bounty Hunter versus Jedi thing, because it could, like we said, the type of game would change depending on which one they go with, for example. Like, if they go with a Jedi sort of character, then you have to feel like it kind of feels more like a Assassin's Creed type of game, right? Because that fits that mold more than the Division. So, like you said, I have wanted a Star Wars open world game for ages and ages and ages and ages, I have always called for that they should make a Star Wars Bounty Hunter sequel, and it should be styled like Red Dead Redemption, but in space. Right. So, if they do something like that, I feel like that'd be cool. And I think the better news that comes out of all this is that EA is no longer the sole proprietor of Star Wars games. Sure. You know what I mean? Like, I think you're right. I think it's very exciting. Looking forward to seeing, what other companies can do with the Star Wars license, because we did have that for a long time. And yes, we got a lot of crappy Star Wars games over the years. But I think with the success of I guess I should say the late success of Battlefront 2, because the game was a disaster at first, but it got better as it went along. And then with the success of Fallen Order, and then the mild success of Squadrons, I think, Lucasfilm Games kind of saw the corner turn, and they just said, okay, look, you've had this time to do stuff with the Star Wars license, and it's been rough. They've canceled games, studios have closed. It's been the microtransactions, all of it's been like a PR disaster.
Right.
But in that disaster, there were still a few good gems, and I think near the end they finally started to get it, and they started to turn that corner. Right. So now it's up to Lucasfilm Games to determine, to match studios to what they want. If they want this type of Star Wars game, they have to find the right studio to make it. And yeah, it would be exciting to see, like, what could Insomniac do with a Star Wars title? Like, something like that. What could, I don't know, any company. Naughty Dog. I know I'm listing off Sony companies, but those are the first ones that come to my mind. I'm sorry. Well,
technically Bethesda's a Microsoft company now,
right.
But I don't imagine, I couldn't really imagine Lucasfilms wanting there to be any sort of exclusivity. And
especially, like, since, it is a done deal, but not everything is, like, perfectly set yet. It's probably going to take a few years for exclusivity to shift, for the consumer base to get used to the fact that Bethesda is Microsoft. You know what I mean? It's going to take a few years.
Right.
So, yeah, they probably aren't going to do that right away. It probably will happen down the line.
Yeah, I just don't imagine.
I'm sure they're going to want to say, like, hey, Sony has Spider-Man, but we have Indiana Jones. I could see that.
I don't. That's comparing apples to oranges. No offense to Indiana Jones, but I'd much rather have Spider-Man.
I mean, yes, I get that, but it's like,
Spider-Man's already been a proven commodity in video games.
I'm not saying the two are equal. I'm just saying that's their best shot. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta find, when you're in a battle, you have to take every advantage you have, and that's their advantage, is to say we have Indiana Jones. Or eventually that might be their advantage.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know, and who knows? But it is just awesome. It's like kind of like a wave of relief to feel like, okay, Star Wars can kind of flourish in games now, because it's not under one company. Competition is good for consumers. It's better. It's better. I mean, we all hate EA for dominating football and all the sports licenses.
I was about to say, now I can only hope that maybe the NFL does the same thing and just allows other developers to do actual simulation games, because they're letting 2K do other, like, I think, like, 2K will be able to do like an NFL Street style, like, arcade, like, or like NFL Blitz style game or whatever, but they just can't do fun. Like a true simulation style like Madden.
Right. And yeah, exactly. And I think that's what we're all waiting for. We're all waiting for that day that license might be up and maybe it won't get renewed. I think we're all kind of hoping for that a little bit, I mean, I'm so glad that this is happening. I'm super excited for the potential of an open world Star Wars game. And I'm over the moon, kind of. I'm like, yes, Star Wars, this is going to be a brilliant few years for Star Wars. I mean, it's also going to be a little bit of oversaturation of Star Wars, because we've got about 8 million Disney Plus shows coming out now. Yeah. And so I hope I don't get tired of the brand, but I'm excited.
I think the good thing is, though, is that it's introducing new characters, new storylines. Yeah. It's not just like following like the Skywalker bloodline. Right. I mean, they'll bring these characters back into the fold, like, and have them be a part of it, but they're not going to be like the foundation. Right.
I do want a game that's not Battlefront where I can play as Rey, for example. Right. Like she's a great character, and I love her character so much. I want to play as Rey at some point. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
So I hope that becomes something that can happen somewhere down the line. And then, of course, and the great thing about this, too, is that EA still can make Star Wars games. So it's like they're still going to make Fallen Order 2, it looks like. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So that's great. We can get multiple Star Wars games with multiple stories, and maybe some indie developers can take their shot at like some other pockets of the Star Wars universe and make some indie games.
Sure.
I heard people float the creators of Hades. Maybe they get a chance to make some type of Star Wars game now.
I would honestly like having like a roguelike dungeon crawler style Star Wars game where you could be like a Jedi and you have like that top down camera, like that would be cool.
That would be cool.
Like that would be like, I don't think anyone would ever think of developing a Star Wars game in that style.
Yeah.
And it would be totally unique. Like it would, honestly, it could work really well if like a game like that would have to be something like on the timeline. It would have to be like, you know, sort of like Knights of the Old Republic timeline where you have where you have a bunch of Jedis still around, and you can make it like a like Diablo multiplayer. You know, you can play with friends and everything. So, like, that would be cool. That would be really cool.
Yeah. No, that'd be awesome. Let's move on to last week in game news, and we have a little bit to go over. First of all, Pokemon Snap got a release date. It is coming out, I'm refreshing my information, in April, correct?
April 30th, I think.
April 30th, yeah. It's new Pokemon Snap, I should specify. Yeah. New Pokemon Snap, which is a dumb name, and I hate that name. So, screw you, Nintendo, for calling it that.
Well, they also had, I remember, like, when the Wii came out, it was, like, the new Super Mario Brothers.
Yes, and I hated that, too. It's a stupid name. Why would you do that? Just call it something else. Give it a subtitle. Come on. Basic naming conventions. If you don't want to call it Pokemon Snap 2, then you got to go the subtitle route. Look, basic naming conventions. You have the name of the first game, right? Or movie, whatever. And then if you want to go the 2, 3, 4 route, that's fine. But then once you get to like 3 or 4, you got to drop them. And you got to start going subtitles. Yeah. Or you drop the 2 right away. You just start doing subtitles right away. One of the two. Yeah. Come on. New Pokemon Snap is dumb. Because what happens in 5 years and there's another Pokemon Snap and it's not new Pokemon Snap anymore. Come on, Nintendo. Get your shit together.
Well, just like it'll be like, they'll have new and Mewtwo, like Mew and Mewtwo.
Get out. Yeah, exactly. 2021 is officially the 25th anniversary of the entire Pokemon franchise as well. So there's going to be merchandise and some collaboration with Katy Perry, of all people.
Yeah, that one came out of left field.
Yeah, like, is she a Pokemon fan, or did they like reach out to her? Like, I'm so confused.
I mean, if the money was
right,
if
she turns out to be a legit Pokemon fan, I'll be shocked. I mean,
she very well could be. I mean, there are a number of it's funny, like there are a number of like celebrities and stuff like that are known Pokemon fans. Like, you know, I mean, obviously they don't spend a lot of time talking about it, but
Nintendo, the family-friendly company, is going to, you know, do the woman who sang "I Kissed a Girl and I Liked It."
I mean, listen, she was safe enough for the NFL to get to do the Super Bowl.
That is very true. That is very true.
So,
you know, I think with all these like stars like Lady Gaga and stuff like that, now that they're like somewhat a little bit older, like they've kind of mellowed out a little bit too. Mm-hmm. So I think they get kind of like a pass nowadays. So yes, so new Pokemon Snap comes out in just a few months, so that's very exciting. Some other news, it's looking more and more like, and we talked about this before the show, CD Projekt Red, it's looking more and more like Cyberpunk 2077 needed a lot more time. I mean, we kind of already all knew this by now, but according to the developers, they expected Cyberpunk 2077 to come out in 2022. Or at least that was their expectation.
Yeah, it probably could have taken that much time. Like they probably could have needed that time.
I mean, that's insane. and yes, it probably did need that time based on everything we've seen and heard. And you've played the game, and obviously, you've told me before we recorded that you're kind of you bought the game, you played it a little bit, but now you're going to take a break until it gets better.
Yeah, I mean, on the Series X, the game runs fine for the most part, but then I came to the realization, I'm like, I want to experience the game like at its highest quality. Right. I want to be able to play like the best version of Cyberpunk, and obviously between getting Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty Black Ops and going back and forth with some other games, like now they have Skyrim on Game Pass, and I might want to jump back in and play Skyrim. All these other games I want to play, I'm like, you know what, I can just let Cyberpunk sit on my hard drive, and whenever they get around to releasing the next gen upgrades for it, I'll download those and I'll get back into playing it. I mean, I gotta say, just in general, I feel like a lot of developers, for whatever reason, transitioning into this new generation, they have struggled.
Sure.
I mean, even like another one is like for instance, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. I have not installed the actual next gen upgrades for the game because I don't know if they've been fixed just yet or not, but people were saying there were crashing issues.
Yikes.
On Series X and PS5, if you had the next gen upgrades installed. And things like ray tracing and things like that.
Sure.
So obviously, like, developers are still like learning and figuring out like the architecture of these consoles and developing things. And the first year of a new console always has these things, but for whatever reason, like just this generation in particular, with CD Projekt Red sort of leading the charge, have really run into a lot of issues, and this instance has to be a learning moment for the gaming industry as a whole. Any like big time AAA developer needs to look at this situation, and they need to say, we can't rush our games out.
Right.
Like, you don't want to be CD Projekt Red right now. Like, they've got like class action lawsuits, to deal with refunds and this has by far been like the worst PR I've seen a developer get in a long time.
This has been basically the most disastrous launch of a game since like No Man's Sky.
And also considering, the thing is too, is that with No Man's Sky, I give that a pass because it was mostly just one guy working on No Man's Sky. It was a very, very small team working on obviously a very ambitious game concept. CD Projekt Red is a huge AAA developer. They're one of the biggest, most well-funded teams out there. They're right up there with, like Rockstar and Bethesda and Ubisoft. Like, they've got the resources.
And this has been in the works for like 8 years.
Well, another report came out and said that they actually really didn't even start, like, the actual development of the game until 2016. Like, the game was announced in 2013, 2014, whatever it was. But they really didn't get to start working on it until 2016. Even then, like 4 years is a lot of time to put into a game. But if you're talking about something at the scale and complexity of Cyberpunk, at least to which they were advertising, is going to need a lot of time.
Right, exactly.
And I think that, if the shareholders, the executive management, you need to they need to listen to the people that are actually spending hundreds, ultimately ends up being thousands of hours of their life working on this game. If they're saying, hey, we need more time to make this game, playable and ready, then do that.
Right.
Yeah,
I do think that this disastrous launch has really been the point of learning for companies and for fans. I think, the gaming community kind of learned a hard lesson too, where, they were so hyped for Cyberpunk, and some of that was obviously created by CD Projekt Red that they kind of whipped the fan base up into a kind of a frenzy over it too. But the community is also culpable for demanding the game to be out and stop getting delayed, and this is what you get for demanding that. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I think that in general is a good lesson for both the gaming community and gaming developers to know going forward. It's just give games the time they need. And a perfect example, even though I hate this with every fiber of my being, but Hogwarts Legacy was scheduled to come out this year. And that was going to be the big Harry Potter action RPG open world game. It was delayed until 2022. We didn't know when exactly this year was going to come out, maybe a little bit later, but either way, it's not coming out this year anymore. And the reason given was that Warner Brothers wanted to take the time to make sure the game, as in their words, had the time it needed. And I think they said that specifically, maybe because they watched what happened with Cyberpunk, and they evaluated and just said, look, what do we need to make this an absolutely perfect game? Look at Halo Infinite. It was about to be launched, and then the developers were like, oh, nope, we need a whole nother year.
I wonder.
I hope that we can learn some lessons this way.
And see, and the thing is that the thing is obviously what CD Projekt Red was presenting, in the lead up to the release of CD Projekt Red, people looked at it like, oh, that looks so good, I'm so excited to play it. And when everyone got like their first look at gameplay of Halo, I was like, that doesn't look too good.
Right.
So you also had obviously 343, like they had the pushback from the fans saying like this doesn't look like what we were hoping for or expecting, and so they had to go back to the drawing board and polish the game some more. But CD Projekt Red, the worst part of it is that clearly like the more and more we hear and learn about the situation, it is just that they were just straight up lying to fans.
Yeah.
To players. Like they were just lying. Like what they presented was not the actual product.
Exactly.
It was not what we all ultimately end up buying if we got it on launch day.
And I haven't played it, but what I gathered, a lot of people say it's a shame too, because there is a good game in there.
There absolutely is.
It's just marred, and it's going to be hard to undo this. It really is at this point. I mean, yeah, maybe they'll patch it, they'll update it. Maybe when the next gen versions come out, maybe. But it's going to be hard to recover from this.
I mean, this is. Again, I think I may have mentioned this once on one of our earliest podcast episodes, but there's the quote from Shigeru Miyamoto, where he says, a delayed game is eventually good.
Right.
But a rushed game is bad forever.
Yep. And
so
we're watching it play out right now.
Right, exactly. It's I mean, listen, if the gaming industry, or at least if like the executives and the shareholders that are a part of this industry that oversee larger teams and large AAA projects, if they do not learn from this experience, then shame on them. Seriously, I mean, the video game industry is. I mean, I believe it still holds true. I mean, it's either just as large or bigger than like movies and television.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so it like, listen, I'm willing to wait. There are so many video games out there to play. Like, yes, like would I be super happy if Elder Scrolls 6 like came out tomorrow? Yeah, I would be, but it's going to be a really bad game if it did.
Of course. Well, I mean, why do you think you only hear from Rockstar once every like 10 years? They like, they put out a great game, they go back into their hole for 10 years, they come out and they kick everybody's ass with another great game.
I think a lot of developers need to take the approach that Rockstar takes, where they don't show the world what they're working on until they're ready to show it.
Absolutely.
You know, like, I'm happy that Bethesda, like, said, yeah, we're working on Elder Scrolls 6. Like, I'm happy to hear that.
Right.
But now I'm, like, itching to want to see what it looks like, and I want it, like I said, like, I want it as soon as possible.
Right.
You know, but, you know, I would have kind of preferred that they just, like, kept it to themselves, and then, like, a year before the game was ready, like, all right, yes, here's Elder Scrolls, you know. It's, you know, it's going to be out within the next year. We're really close to finishing it. You know, and then, like I said, and Halo's another perfect example. So just hopefully 2020 has been a year where a lot of people have learned a lot about many different things, you know. So hopefully between Halo and Cyberpunk, you know, developers just will be allowed to take their time and deliver games that people will actually want to play.
Wrapping up with one last thing, and sticking with that theme about games into this year, what games are you excited for this year, man? Now that we are in 2021, you know, you got to have a few games that you have, like, marked on your calendar somewhere.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about? Is it Halo Infinite?
Yeah, Halo's at the top of the list.
Nice.
There really isn't too much else, just because, like, I'm trying to keep expectations in check, because I do imagine that you know, the remnants of the pandemic, ultimately there will be other games that are going to get delayed. Like, obviously, you know, the Hogwarts game has already been announced and delayed.
One hurt.
Right.
That one hurts so bad.
So at the top of my list is Halo. You know, I'm excited to see, like, once they feel ready to show it to the world again, and, like, this is where we are now. You know, I'm really excited to see what they've managed to do. You know, I am excited for Pokemon Snap. You know, it comes out late, you know, in just a few months.
Sure.
You know, go down that, you know, that nostalgic road. Yeah. You know, I've been wanting, honestly, you know, I've been hoping for a new Pokemon Snap ever since they had, like, the Wii U. Like, that would have been, like, a really great.
Yeah.
That would have been, like, the perfect console for them to do.
That was a
for.
missed opportunity.
Right.
Why wasn't that a launch game for the Wii U? That would have been perfect.
It would have been, but,
freaking Nintendo.
You know, but now we have this version, and I'm excited to give it a try. I mean, that's essentially it. You know, yeah. I am because I really can't think of too much else there. So many of the games that I'm interested in to know more about are further down the line.
Sure.
You know, like, I'm interested in seeing Starfield for the first time from Bethesda. They still haven't shown a damn thing from Starfield. Like, I mean, they've announced that they just kept it really close to the chest. You know, so hopefully this might be the year where we finally get to see at least something of it. And that's pretty much it. You know, sure. I'm sure there'll be other games that will pop up. You know, I'm really excited for Avowed, which is being developed by Obsidian. Okay. Exclusive for Xbox Series X. But that's probably not going to come out until next year. Mm-hmm. I imagine. Yeah, probably. And why am I blanking on the game from the Left 4 Dead developers?
Oh, Back 4 Blood.
Back 4 Blood. Yes, yeah. I'm also looking forward to that.
I keep forgetting about that game. That should be interesting. Especially, I haven't done, like, a competitive, cooperative online player in a long time, so that'll be interesting to get back into that fold a little bit. I agree with you there. I would have said Hogwarts Legacy if I hadn't had this really terrible news. I mean, ultimately, it's good news because, like we just said, we'd much rather them take their time and put out a good, polished product. Because, I mean, that trailer was awesome. I was so excited. Everything I saw in there was great. And if any of it is disappointing, I will just be devastated. So that Hogwarts Legacy would have been on my list. Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake is on my list. It's coming out in a few months. That was delayed. It was supposed to come out in January, and it was delayed till March. I'm excited for that. It's they're rebuilding the game from ground up for, it wasn't made for PS5 or Xbox, or the series consoles, but it'll still be exciting to play. I think it'll be exciting to revisit, the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time game. So I'm excited for that. There's also Horizon Forbidden West, which I'm very excited for because game sequels tend to do very well. And Horizon Zero Dawn to me was a good start. And it has really it was a weird game because for the first half of the game I didn't really care about the story that much. I was just kind of going through the game. It was an enjoyable world, and it's kind of fun that you're this archer girl going up against robot dinosaurs. That's kind of fun, kind of silly. But then about halfway through, I got to the main crux of the story, and then suddenly it clicked for me, and suddenly I was really engaged. And the last half of that game really got me into it. So I'm very excited for a sequel. I hope they improve on some things, but that supposedly Horizon Forbidden West is supposed to come out next year. I hope it doesn't get delayed, so that I have something to look forward to with this new system. But so yeah, I think those are my biggest ones. I can't think of any else off the top of my head.
Actually, two more that I want to mention are smaller indies, and I've talked about these before. Actually, I'm surprised I didn't mention them at first. But there's the game 12 Minutes that's coming out. I'm really excited for that. It's an indie game. It's going to be exclusive on Xbox. For anyone who hasn't seen it, it's got this direct top-down camera view, and the concept of the story, and it's got an crazy voice cast. You've got James McAvoy, Daisy Ridley, and Willem Dafoe are all in the game. Yeah.
Man.
So the idea
my language
is
now.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a thriller game, and it's a time loop game. So essentially, I think the premise of the story is something like, the husband, you have a husband and wife couple, so James McAvoy and Daisy Ridley play these characters.
Sure.
And at the beginning of the game, a man shows up. I believe this is the character voiced by Willem Dafoe. He's a police officer. He basically busts into their apartment or whatever, claims that the wife murdered his father or something some time ago, and so he was looking for revenge, I guess. And so he knocks out James McAvoy, the husband character, and he kills the wife. And I think the wife's also pregnant or something. So then the game then restarts to the beginning, and it works in 12-minute loops. So you have 12 minutes each time loop to try and figure out as much as you can about why this is all happening or whatever. And so it sounds like the game concept sounds incredibly interesting.
That's unique.
And then the other game I want to play is Tunic. It's a kind of almost like Legend of Zelda, sort of like Link to the Past kind of style game. And you basically play as this little fox character. He's dressed up in a little green tunic, kind of like Link or whatever. And the game the game looks so charming. I love the way the way the game looks. It's another game similar to No Man's Sky, where it's essentially one person doing the majority of the work. But those games are both expected to come out at some point this year. They have no real actual release date. But I am excited to play both of those.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be a good year. Hopefully things don't get canceled. It makes it a crappy year. I really hope not. Well, that's it. That's all we got for the show today. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. You can connect with us on Twitter and Facebook with @JumpButtonPod. Until next time, see you in the Funny Papers.